I can't say I've ever heard anyone talk about Meikyuu Jima. It's not an especially popular game, even in Japan. But it's a game that I happen to enjoy quite a bit. In fact, I'm willing to call it a hidden gem on the Famicom. Meikyuu Jima was originally an arcade game by Irem, and the Famicom version is the only port that it got, even though Irem was releasing PC Engine games at the time. The title could be translated as Maze Island, although there aren't a whole lot of mazes in the game. Maybe that's why they went with the kind of generic Kickle Cubicle in the US. The story in Meikyuu Jima isn't just another princess has been kidnapped kind of tale. It's far deeper and richer than that. 5 princesses have been kidnapped, so it's 5 times deeper. There are 69 stages in Meikyuu Jima before you reach the ending, but that's not the end of levels. An additional 20 super difficult stages exist after you beat the game. Your goal on every level is to collect I guess they're bags. Weirdly enough, the manual doesn't say what they're supposed to be either. Anyways, you collect all of them, and then the island that you were on collapses into the sea. Of course, you can't just walk over and collect all of the bags, and all of the stages involve figuring out how to make a path to them, or at least how you can safely get to the bags. You've got 2 abilities to help you with this. Hitting the B button shoots a little freeze blast, and if you're standing next to an ice cube, then you give it a shove. While most enemies can be frozen, only the little blue blobs will turn into ice cubes. Naturally, when you kick a cube, it slides along the ice until it bumps into something. And if it goes off the edge of the island into the water, then it forms a new square of ice. Ice cubes next to each other when they're kicked get shoved all at once, and kicking a cube into another cube causes it to transfer momentum. Being able to make and kick cubes around isn't always enough to solve the stage, so if you hit the A button and have an empty square of ice in front of you, then you raise a pillar there. The pillar blocks all movement. So what you'll often find yourself doing is placing pillars so that you can kick an ice cube into them and then change its direction. If you kick a frozen enemy, they just shatter. Enemies that are completely defeated will respawn from the eggs after a few seconds. This is something that generally works to your advantage with the blue blobs. There are other enemies that can affect the playfield, like these chickens that will kick any blocks that they come across, or these bombs that will speed up if you get too close and then explode. It helps to be aware of the variety of terrain. Squares without ice on them are impassable to the blue blobs, and squares with holes in them are impassable to you, but ice bricks will go over them. Naturally, springs will send a block flying back at you, and these hammers will spin when they're hit by a block, knocking them into a new direction. You're going to spend a lot of time just trying to figure out what path can you take here. How do you use the tools that have been made available to you to complete the stage? Fortunately, enemies aren't especially aggressive. They'll generally head towards you, but they do so at kind of a leisurely pace. So you've got time to think, and while the stages have time limits, they're not really aggressive ones. Another trick to be aware of is that the ice blocks melt over time, but you can shoot them again with your freeze beam to firm them up. There are 2 other collectibles that you can find on the stages, these fudge sickles. They're worth some bonus points, and if you collect them by kicking an ice cube over them, they're worth double those points. Points don't do anything in this game. Instead, if you want to 1-up, you'll have to find one of these hearts on a stage. One distinct thing in Meikyuu Jima is that there's no set path through the levels. You start out flying above the islands and can move freely to which one you want to solve. Hitting the A button brings up a map, and hitting the B button will set you down. Once all of the islands have been destroyed, then you get to fight that kingdom's boss. And the bosses are really low effort. They all are creatures that hang at the back, throw something big towards you that explodes into pieces that you can kick back at them, and occasionally charge down to clear out the lower play area. They are trivial to beat. You start out with 3 lives, and if you lose all of them, then you can continue as many times as you like, and you can get a password to pick up exactly where you left off. And that's really all there is to Meikyuu Jima. It's one of those action puzzle games that builds a lot of stages out of some very basic elements. The first world starts out trivially easy, but it's there mainly so that you can get a feel for how everything works. It's the second kingdom where they start really trying to stress you. And by the third kingdom, you really have to think about every level. That does mean it's a bit of a slow burn. You've got to play over a dozen very easy stages before the game starts trying to challenge you, after all. Once you're past those initial levels, though, I think Meikyuu Jima becomes a really solid puzzle game.